It is now 4 o'clock on Monday, December the 16th, I think it is. And I am opening the Yelm Planning Commission meeting. Let's see here. Order. Would you please do a roll call, staff?
Commissioner Carlos Perez.
Here.
Commissioner Bob Howard.
Here.
Commissioner John Graver.
Here.
Commissioner Richard Lomsdale.
Here.
Commissioner Ann Warman. Here. Commissioner David Johnstone.
Here.
And Commissioner Austin Walker is excused.
Very well, thank you. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, has everyone had an opportunity to read the attached minutes?
Yes.
Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes? Your second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Right.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the minutes from the last meeting are approved. Moving on to agenda item number 5, city staff communications. Are there any communications staff?
No, I'm gonna reserve them all for new business.
There we go. All right, next on the agenda item is number 6, which is asking the audience if they would like to address the commission. If there are any comments, it should be limited to 3 minutes and no more than 5 speakers. And it should be comments listed on the agenda. They'll all be welcome. If anyone who wants to comment, would you please stand up to the podium and state your name and address for the record? There are. Agenda item number 7, unfinished business. Staff, is there any unfinished business from the last meeting?
That's a tough one. It seems like all of our business is unfinished, but no.
True enough. True enough. So what do you want to go on with that or just?
No, I have there's no unfinished.
Okay. All right, then we move on to item number 8, new business.
Okay. So here we got 4 or 5 things to discuss. None of them regard making a decision. Well, potentially one. That the first thing I want to do is recognize Chairman Perez, who has been with the Planning Commission for 6 years, which is very noble service. I've worked in communities where it's hard to keep people on planning commission for more than 6 months. So it's really remarkable, because we need that kind of longevity so that you know what the issues are that we've dealt with in the past, and it really gives a lot of context. So I just want to tell you how much in our time together, which has been about 2 years already.
That's right.
How much I appreciate working with you, and you're also just a really nice guy.
Well, thank you. The feeling is mutual.
And I have a certificate of appreciation I'd like to give to you.
Well, thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much. No, I'm grateful that I got the opportunity to serve on the planning commission. It's a great city, it's a great town, and we've got a lot of growth yet to see in the future, and hopefully it'll be growth that we can handle,
Yeah.
So, but again, thank you very much, everyone, for the support and just for the camaraderie. Thank you. All right, next item, please.
Enjoy your 3rd Monday of every month.
Yeah, I will.
So another thing that's not on the agenda, but I did, because you are resigning, of course, it's up to the planning commission to determine who the next chair will be. Doesn't require a public hearing. It's a completely internal deliberation. I don't know, and if you are interested in entertaining, trying to select a chair tonight.
Yes.
If not, then Bob is the vice chair, so you would assume that role until we, get a new chairperson. But if you would like to do that, now's the time. And basically it's done by motion.
Yes. Well, a motion to nominate someone?
A motion to nominate, and you
Okay.
can nominate yourself, you can nominate,
Right.
other planning
Can
commission.
can I also make a nomination?
Of course.
All right, well, do I hear a motion to nominate the next chairman? I make a motion to nominate the next chairman. I nominate Richard to be the next chairman. Any other nominations?
I second that.
No, any other nominations? All right, all those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Very well.
Fantastic, that was fast. Okay, great, well, fantastic, and if there are any questions about sort of the procedures, we have guidelines, to open meetings, open hearings and all that, and then the next month we can talk about that if you need some assistance. Also on the Department of Commerce website, I can give you a link to that, but they have all kinds of guidance for planning commissioners and for chairs, and that's great. So we can have a seamless transition. So next month we'll have chair in place. We'll be good to go.
What about co-chair? Can he remain the co-chair until such time?
I'll have to go back and look, but I think that there's a specific term or time that you serve, so it doesn't affect you.
I also have from years past a flash thing that I guess it was Tammy sent us.
Okay.
Has, I think, all of the documentation that you're talking about. Now, it may be outdated, so.
I'm not sure I've seen that. If you want to send it on, I was looking through the folders today and I didn't see.
It's a whole series of,
Hazel might know, she's usually able to
all
find.
right, I'll send that to you, Gary, and you might pass it on to Richard. Because it was very helpful.
Great.
Yeah, very helpful.
Very good.
For that, in the past. Given that John Graber's still here online, he can correct me if I'm wrong. Is we would hold nominations and elections of a chair and a vice chair every year.
Okay.
And it would be done in the January timeframe. There was always a joke that we'd say is that the new chair had to bring cookies. But that was what I recall
Okay.
was our mode of operation.
I'll have to look and see. I looked in our municipal code for the planning commission and there was no guideline or direction on those things. So there's squirreled away somewhere, probably some procedures that were just developed as policies.
It was just
Yeah.
the way things were done over the last 10 years. But that's, who knows if we want to continue that.
Okay.
You're just wanting cookies.
Yeah. Right.
I'll come when that. All right, then, so let's move on.
Order business.
Yes.
So I'm hoping to bring more stuff on the land use chapter this month, but there's still a lot of pieces floating out there because there are other elements in the comp plan that are going to really affect the land use chapter, the climate element, the housing element, and the transportation element. But I did want to at least touch on it. I think I touched on it a little bit last time, but I put up on the screen there and you have a piece of paper also. You have it in hard copy, whichever is easier to look at. If you get into the RCW, the state statute for comprehensive plan mandated elements, these are the things that have to appear in the land use element. And when I go back and scrub our existing comp plan, I think we're actually pretty good in several areas. And so, as I said last time, we don't have to go back and completely rewrite the comp plan. All we have to do is look to see whether it needs to be changed or enhanced. In this case, it's probably more a case of enhancing the comp plan because there's been some legislation since the last update that adds things to the land use element that didn't used to be required before. And I guess I'll point to, I think numbers 1 through 3, I'm not gonna go through those right now because I think that we actually have pretty good handle on that in our existing comp plan. Number 4 is one that I'm reaching out to other jurisdictions to see how they address this, because it says the land use element must give special consideration to achieving environmental justice in its goals and policies, including efforts to avoid creating or worsening environmental health disparities. And so that's really, in some ways, it's a socioeconomic, are there elements of the local population that aren't getting the same opportunities as others? So it's a very broad concept, and just trying to figure out what the proper way to address that in terms of our goals and policies, something that I'm still looking into. Number 5, and this is one, for example, that will, and by the way, I think number 4 will tie into our housing element too. So these things all kind of interrelate. For example, access to open space, so public places or natural areas. You want to make sure that people have equal access to those kinds of environmental amenities throughout your community and not just in one area. Number 5, that should consider utilizing urban planning approaches that promote physical activity and reduce per capita vehicle miles traveled. And so, again, that's one where in the transportation element, we're going to be looking at, and we're required now to look at what they call multimodal transportation concepts. And that means not just vehicles, but mass transit, bicycles, pedestrian pathways, etc. So those two things are going to kind of relate back to each other. So to provide opportunities for people to basically get out of their cars and get on their feet and walk around and get healthy.
May I interject something here? If I recall, not last council meeting, but the meeting before, there was a lady that introduced a proposal for the 600+ acres back there at the home thing, for a kind of multi-proposal thing, talking about having parks and play areas and all that kind of stuff. Have you seen that at all? Have you seen that proposal?
I haven't seen any specific proposal. I mean, that 640 is part of our master plan community.
Right.
And so it would, that I would envision would be, as part of the master plan community, it would be a mix of housing, commercial, and open space and recreation, not just open space or recreation.
I don't think that was, maybe it was, but my impression was that it was not.
Yeah.
Completely the intent to have nothing but open space.
Right.
But would it be something that might be included in the comprehensive plan as some allusion to alluding to that possibility? How to use that land?
I think, well, we could, under the broader umbrella of the multi-plan or the master plan community zoning district,
Right.
It should be a priority to assure that we have recreation, open space,
Right.
those kinds of opportunities. And that's kind of in there now. And I don't know if you have seen that it goes all the way back to 2008.
Yeah,
The Thurston Highlands master plan had lots of those kinds of amenities, and that's kind of what we envision happening in the future when that actually develops.
because if I remember correctly, that master plan had a lot of that
And a lot of
incorporated
parks,
into it, but
yes.
then we went off on a tangent or something and didn't really, because of all of the legal stuff that went on, and that we
It
just kind of
never-
dropped the ball.
It never came about to have it actually written up that says this is what this portion of the city is going to look like.
Right,
Because it was always when the master plan community happens,
right,
then
yeah.
it'll be.
John Graver, do
It
you
was a
recall?
specific proposal. However, that was 2008, and the mortgage crisis
Right,
basically killed it. So,
Yeah, but one of the things that they had brought in at talking at that time was doing a commercial area that was similar to the village up by the UW. A very open but connected commercial area. And I don't know if anybody remembers that, but that was what I really liked about the project.
Yeah,
Yeah, some meeting, if you're interested, just as a, a little interlude. I still have the map of what they were proposing in 2008 to just sort of take a look at that.
because I recall it to be a very walkabout kind of plan. where-
Yeah, I think they were gonna put a school in, they had
Yes.
massive open space areas, they had, of course, housing, so it was a really kind of a beautiful idea, I thought. And we hope that something like that's still gonna happen.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So, let me see here. The other one, and been talking to Chris about this as our fire marshal. Can you scroll, or can I, or do I, or do
Yeah,
you?
you do.
Oh, I can't find my scroll button. Oh, there it is. Got it. The last one is, I'm just gonna read it. The land use element must reduce and mitigate the risk to lives and property posed by wildfires by using land use planning tools, which may include but are not limited to adoption of portions or all of the Wildland Urban Interface Code developed by the International Code Council, or developing building and maintenance standards consistent with the new Fireways USA program or similar program designed to reduce wildfire risk. Reducing wildfire risk to residential development in high-risk areas and the wildland urban interface area, separating human development from wildfire-prone landscapes, protecting existing residential development and infrastructure through community wildfire preparedness and fire adaptation measures. I mean, you could do something as simple as like plop that in there as a goal, break it up and put it in there as a goal, but I want to look into it more, talking to Chris, talking to Matt Russell at the fire department. Some of these things are new to me. I did look up the Firewise USA program and other things to see what we might, again, we're not writing regulations, we're doing goals and policies that we use to write regulations later. So what are the kinds of things we want to achieve? So this is a work in progress. I will say that we have a consultant who's working on the climate element. We got a $500,000 grant from Commerce to do this because it's a brand new element in comp plans. So they threw some money out there. And they've been doing a lot of background sort of data gathering. And one of the things that is a highlight in the draft summary already is that we're definitely going to be at an increased risk of wildfire. Some things they were throwing out there felt kind of doom and gloom, but they're, talking about by 2050, the average summer temperature will increase by 6 degrees. Various things that are going on around us that are going to just make it, a more hazardous wildfire environment. So, I mean, we're surrounded by prairie areas and places that can catch on and have grass fires and things. So it's something that we need to think about.
There's some spectacular ones already.
How exactly do they plan to mitigate this stuff? I mean, I don't understand.
Well, I mean, like when I look at the Firewise program, some of it is just basic education, like how to clear properties, keep them, so that they're less likely, rake your pine cones or what, some of it's basic stuff. Some of it is likely building standards. Others may be, what you allowed uses in areas that are more prone to wildfires. So instead of having densely packed residential area, maybe that's an area where you have ball fields or something that, you don't have to necessarily evacuate and you can restore.
Yeah,
So I'm just shooting off the top of my head. This is a newer area to me too. We've never really had to plan for wildfires in past updates, so.
I think another element of that is gonna be maintaining undeveloped lands that are overgrown. So that would lean a little bit into the International Property Maintenance Code, which has been proposed to adopt in the past. But previous planners felt like our municipal code covered it, so it would be kind of redundant. But I'll work with Assistant Fire Marshal Matt Russell from Southeast Thurston Fire Authority more on that, and we'll get back with Gary and we'll figure out what exactly we want that to look like.
Does the county also have to follow these kinds of guidelines?
Yes. Absolutely. These guidelines apply to every jurisdiction that plans under Growth Management Act, county and city. County has some other guidelines that we don't have to follow, like things related to long-term agriculture and long-term forestry and things like that, where they designate huge tracts for preservation of farmland and timber.
Right.
So.
Okay.
That's all I had on that. I just wanted to, again, just sort of keep us in touch with the land use piece of things. Andrew is taking the lead on the housing element. And I think that's one that I hope that we can tee up pretty soon as well, because those two things go together. Any other thoughts or comments or questions on that?
One item that I think you mentioned it in your email that you were waiting on is the population figures. That is to be able to do the update to show population and the housing categories.
Yeah, I mean, I do have the numbers, but I'm waiting for them to be finalized. So Thurston Regional Planning Council is the one that does that. I mean, I've actually already put them in the draft because I do know that pretty certain those are the numbers. But I mean, if you want to know, it's population projection for 2045 is about 26,000 people. And the housing need for 2045 is 7,506 new housing units.
I would appreciate being able to see the a chart with that shows what the change, from where we are now to this projection.
Yeah.
Because it's my impression that a lot that we did on the prior update to the comprehensive plan was starting to recognize that we had such a huge population change that we needed to address. And I had been hearing that it was going to be even more this time. And I can't visualize it just from the numbers you've thrown out.
Yeah, so there is a table in there, which I've updated, which does that, and it kind of goes back to, excuse me, 2010, 2020, 2024, because that's our point in time, 2030, all the way to 2045.
When do we get to see that?
Well, I'm gonna pull up what I've got right now, if you want me to.
Pulling it out.
I just, because we haven't finalized it. This would come with the whole draft chapter when we hand it to you.
I'm just getting us ready for it. That was just one of the things that we needed to really understand more. How serious some of the population change is going to be.
Sure, are we done?
Yeah.
I may be at a turn on this, but if I remember, I can't remember if it was in the 2017 comp plan. But on some of my education studies, doing reports, I've done some stuff, with looking at the comp plans and things like that. And I want to say it was on the comp plan of 2017 that there was some projections for growth that I don't believe were actually met. I mean, and that it actually came in a bit lower as far as the actual residential growth over versus what actually happened. So I was just wondering if you had seen any of that, in the numbers that you're looking at and doing the projections for growth for the 2045. Because like you said, we're doing projections for growth, and then when it comes around and we're not even really close to the numbers. It's,
Well, sorry, I have a frog in my throat now. Start talking growth.
and like I said, I could be mistaken, but from from what I recall though, that was,
Because we didn't expand the,
Thank you.
we didn't absorb more of the population that was
UGA?
coming in. Because the UGA was there, but we didn't grow into it
right,
because of all the difficulty with the water rights.
right.
We didn't open up the door to, until more recently.
Yeah, and I do know the water rights was one of the issues and stuff, that they weren't given a lot of the licenses and permits and stuff like that because the water wasn't available, so.
It was there, but there was just
Yep,
huge.
yeah, so, I mean,
Well, I'm sorry, I can't find the file right now, but I will, this week, I will send you that table. And, I mean, the estimated need that we have for 2045 of 7,500 units is an enormous amount of units that it will be really difficult for us to meet that.
It's huge.
To complicate it, we have another study that Thurston Regional Planning Council did. It was land capacity analysis based on the zoning that we have in the city. How likely are we to be able to accommodate the affordable housing allocations that we've been doing? And we came up, is it units or acres? I can't remember now, but we fared the worst of all the cities in Thurston County. We came up about, I think it was 2,500 units short of what they're saying we're gonna need to meet our affordable housing. Oh, thank you, Chris. So there are some things that we're gonna have to tackle. Andrew's gonna solve that in the housing element. But I can give you those numbers. The reason I haven't shared them is because all of these things are only just now getting finalized. And until they get adopted by Thurston Regional Planning, they're not official.
I was just thinking that in order for us to, I think of it as get ready, having some of the preliminary, even if they're not final, to be able to say, what are the challenges that we're gonna face? And I know that was one of the areas that we had to deal with last time.
Yeah, so that table exists already in the 2017 plan. We're updating it. And like I said, we're gonna do this piecemeal, so one chapter at a time. When we share the draft chapter with our proposal, what I'm doing right now is I'm going through our current plan and I'm looking at what's required, mandated under the statute, and finding the goals and policies that we already have that meet those requirements and basically highlighting them and saying this, so that as we read through, you can go, okay, yeah, we've already checked that box, that box, that box. Or maybe even though we check that box, maybe we could add something else, or maybe we can make it stronger, that kind of a thing. So when you get the chapter, you'll see that. There should be maybe some draft additional language, say talking to Matt or Chris about things we can do for wildfire and what have you. And we will have the updated numbers for both population projections and housing projections and housing projected need.
How much time will
It's about an
the,
8-page chapter, so it's not.
how much time will the commission have to review the drafts and then get back to you before it's gotta be set in
I
concrete?
know this is always tricky. I mean, we're not gonna expect it to be looked at and approved or adopted or what have you in one meeting. Some may take more than others. Like I was saying, like the capital facilities chapter, that's so straightforward. That one's one you could probably do in one meeting because it's just a matter of us updating what we've already adopted in our planning process for, installing a water tower and upgrading Roten Road and things like that. So we have until December 31st of 2025 to adopt the comp plan. So we've got a year. And, some of the more important chapters may take longer than others, and we may start on, for example, the land use is probably one of the most important elements. And if it has to be looked at over a 2 or 3 month period, let's say it.
The 2 or 3 month period will be a period that the commission will have to review it, or you will work on it and then
Well,
you will give us.
yeah, I mean, I envision bringing a draft to a planning commission meeting, for example. You would have the entire next month to review it and come up with your own suggestions, edits or whatever, then we would meet again, discuss those. And just hone it.
Would you consider having kind of like work study sessions in between?
Absolutely. Yeah,
So that you
Yeah.
could, in mass, review the document and say, and he agrees with this, I don't agree with it, he doesn't, so we kind of hash it out.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I certainly don't accept or expect anything to be rubber stamped or to happen overnight.
Okay.
We kind of figure out what we need as we go, like some will be more complicated than others, and be like, hey, yeah, we really need to discuss this. Some will be like, yeah, okay, let's move on. Anything else on this particular piece?
Have any questions? All right, we move on to the next one.
Okay, so this is a good segue because the climate element. And we have a consultant, who's doing great work. Same consultant who's helping us with our HCP. And part of our grant, as all commerce grants do, requires us to have a public participation component. And we were thinking it would be good to combine that with a meeting of the planning commission to have basically, if we can, schedule it, a special meeting with an open house where we would have the consultant coming in, talking about what's required of the climate element, what information they've gathered so far, seeking public input. And it just seems to me like it would be helpful for all of us, planning commission and the public. I was hoping that we could do, although I'm backing off on that, my ambition is maybe got ahead of me, but I was hoping we could do 2 meetings in January. But because we can't meet on the 20th because of the holiday, and it looks like we can't meet on the 27th because we don't have enough folks who are available that day. I can't see, if we're having trouble getting the 1 meeting, I can't see getting 2. So I'm thinking about, well, we need to figure out 1 meeting for January, and hopefully you all be available for 2 in February. I mean, it's devil's in the details, right? Everybody has to look at their calendars, but if you agree with the idea in general, then we can start working on dates to see if we can put something together.
Any opposition to that? Yeah, go ahead then.
Okay, we'll get back with you. So the 27th does not work. The 20th does not work. We don't have to have it be on a Monday. So I guess the other thing I would ask, are there days that work better for you all than others? Like, is a Thursday always off, always taken, or?
I know in my case, I actually have shoulder replacement on the 16th of January, so. So I'll have to figure,
We'll do the 17th then. Okay, we'll figure that out. But we'll get back to you. I just wanted to give you the heads up on the climate stuff because they are starting, they're starting to produce information, and it's time for us to sort of get it out there. And also it's, we can't collect on our grant unless we do these steps.
So for February, it would be 2 special meetings because the original meeting is a holiday.
Again,
Yeah.
okay, well, we'll figure it out. That's all I can say. Thanks, Hazel. So that's all I had on that. This third one here is the work of Reza, our civil engineer. And if there's anything you want to add or say, or do you want to present it, I don't care. Okay. Okay, so from time to time, we've seen grading activities going on in the city for that aren't attached to any particular application. There's not a project that we're reviewing. It doesn't happen all that often, but sometimes folks might decide they want to go out and clear and prepare their property before they come in for a permit. So if they'd come in for, let's say, a subdivision application, then we would have a way to review any proposed grading they would do, because when they do that, they get a preliminary approval and then they have to submit civil plans to us. That includes all the grading and the improvements they're gonna do on the property, and the Resolve would review that to make sure that they're doing it correctly. But there are occasions when, and it's nothing nefarious, it's just like, well, we want to get this property ready, we want to flatten it, we want to level it. And the problem with that is that it doesn't give us the opportunity to make sure that they're not getting in a wetland buffer, for example, or a stream buffer, or what have you. But gives us the opportunity to make sure we know where, if they're bringing in fill, where's the fill coming from? Or if they're removing fill, where is it going? You know, we've got a property in Crystal Springs that for a long period of time was having fill dumped into it. It's mapped as a wetland, but you wouldn't know it now. And that's not, again, necessarily the people who did that over those period of years may not have even known it at all, because they didn't have the benefit of being told that you know. So the whole purpose of this grading permit is to try to be able to address those situations, which again are not that common. And in your packet, this is the language that Resolve prepared. The right one. So if you look at chapter 1812, you get the whole chapter. The reason is just to show you where it's being added as a completely new subject, 1812-055, grading and clearing review. And if you sort through, third page, I guess, purple underlined, that's all the new language. The reason I'm bringing it today is because sort of like a first reading, just give you a heads up, this is something we're going to bring to you next month for a hearing. We have to have a public hearing to adopt anything that goes into chapter 18. This is pretty standard language. I assume, Rizal, you looked at a couple different jurisdictions. And so you're looking at 50 cubic yards or more as a threshold. Just as a point of reference, that's basically 5 dump trucks. So it's, even though 50 sounds like maybe a low number, it's actually quite a bit of dirt.
So this doesn't state that a person cannot remove trees from their property. But it says if it's more than 6, you have to get approval.
Well, there's some overlapping codes on that. If you are removing trees, you're under it. Where is it in the code, Chris? We have another removing trees from private property section of the code.
I think it's in chapter 18 under trees and vegetation.
Anyway, I'm not asking you to review all this right now. I just gave it to you so you can review it before our next meeting, because we will have a hearing on it at that time.
So you say there's another code that already,
We've got 2 different sections of our code that deal with tree removal. One is removal of trees on private property, where you're supposed to consult with the planning department. The other one is street trees.
Street trees, yeah, because we have a street tree permit, and the way we've been doing it is If the tree is sick, damaged, or diseased and needs to be removed, we don't require a street tree permit. But if you're removing the tree just because you're tired of looking at native species there, then we would issue it.
Is the entire YMC available on the city website?
Yes. If you Google Yelm Municipal Code, you can pull up the whole thing. And then, of course, the stuff we deal with is almost exclusively chapter 18, the Unified Development Code. And I'll bring in, and for the next meeting, I'll bring in the regs that we have for tree removal in other areas.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's not prohibited, but there are oftentimes good reasons to remove trees. And then for street trees, even that, but usually there's a replanting requirement, so. Anything else on that for now?
Does this follow, on the grading, is that follow kind of the same lines as the county?
I don't know, I mean,
I have to check, but no, I haven't checked with the county. But I will check.
I'm just curious, I do a lot of work out in the county and I work pretty close with a guy by the name of Kevin Chambers, and he's the one that enforces this kind of stuff. He comes and looks at your building sites,
yeah,
looks at your drainage a little bit, how it impacts your road approach, your driveways, all of that kind of stuff. So, the 50 yards thing, I'm well aware of.
yeah, I'm sure.
So it's, that's why I thought I'd ask.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's very similar, because most of the grading permit stuff that I've seen, it might. Vary, like the SEPA, when you're required to do SEPA. Some will require it at 100 yards, some will require it at 500 yards. You have some leeway, so jurisdictions will vary that way, but for the most part, it's pretty similar, because they're all looking at the same things, just like you said, stormwater runoff. Quarry spalls for getting onto the roadway, staying out of critical areas, all that, stockpiling. Any other questions on this one? Okay. So now we get to the fun one, Andrew. I've been having a lot of fun with this. So you adopted or recommended adoption of code changes. I want to say it's been 3 months ago now.
Yeah.
That was the question.
Yes. Code changes that included lots of different things, like changing things in the CBD zone to allow duplexes in certain types of situations where you got tiny lots, et cetera, et cetera. The doors facing Yelm Avenue. There were numerous changes. We got stuck on bicycles. The council did not want to approve requiring bicycle parking, yes, bicycle parking. At first, we thought that by eliminating long-term bicycle parking, which is definitely more expensive, that's more like bike lockers, that maybe that would address a concern, but the more the discussion went on, the more it just turned into that they don't want to impose that requirement on businesses. It's sort of a gray area as to whether or not we should have another hearing if they're just removing one thing that you changed. But because they changed an entire category of something that you wanted to approve, we felt like it would be better to come back. So if they had, for example, just said, we don't want the long term, but we will still have bike parking short term, the little racks in front of the convenience store, we would have, it's a judgment call, but we would have said that's a minor amendment. We don't need to have another hearing on that. But there's the judgment piece of it is we don't want to take recommendations from the planning commission to the council and set a precedent for them to start doing what I call line item vetoes. So we want to be really careful as to when we do and don't require a hearing. In this case, we're gonna bring it back for a hearing. We're gonna be removing the parking. As a planning commission, you can say, we wanna keep it in. It's up to you to what you would recommend. But it just seemed like the prudent way to go about this. So we're gonna be bringing it back. It'll be identical to what you saw before, with the exception that there won't be bicycle parking.
Good luck, Richard.
I've dealt with worse.
Yeah. So we will be having 2 hearings next month, one on that and then one on the grading permit.
That was my question, by the way. What did they object to? I didn't.
Yeah, it was that. I think there was some concern about the forward facing doors on the Gilm Avenue. But there were nothing strong that I had, that I can remember. If that were to be rejected, we would bring it back again, because that is, in a way, that's a planning commission generated idea. So that's all I have for this evening.
Well, thank you, Gary.
I will get you all I'm just putting draft on them, but I will get you the population and housing projections and.
Any other questions? John, Graver, any questions? Very well, move on to agenda item number 9, public hearing, move on, so. Move on, agenda item number 10, subcommittee reports. And do you have any reports on the board?
Just that Christmas in the Park appeared to be very successful this year. I was not able to attend. I was very, very ill at the time, so coughing a lot. And I've been told that it turned out very well. And I'm really pleased, even with the amount of rain and limiting length of the day that people were there. Made a big difference. And then that there's continuing work on the parks and the new trail to go across the Nisqually River on the bridge. They've got a 90% approval for the plan, which means that it's going to happen. We're going to move forward with being able to start the 90% one to be able to go for bid and such.
How is that funded again?
RCO, which is, I can recall what RCO is. It's a state grant.
Recreation and Conservation Office.
So and I have to say that the reason that we're able to get the RCO grant and other grants that we've gotten for various new parks that we have, like the dog park and the Prairie Line Trail, it requires having a complete parks plan. And so when we go forward to do the parks plan portion of the comprehensive plan, it is very, very critical that we have in it the list of the new park facilities and proposed priority list, because that's where you start to prove that you should have funding. They look to that first. And we managed to have one.
Yes.
At least for the parts that we've that we're currently getting funded for. And but we finished all the priorities that were in the old plan, so we've got to do some work on the next step.
Is that all?
That's all.
John, do you have any comments? Reports?
Maybe Chris could do it.
Yeah, we're gonna have our meeting of the tree board next month. So we're working closer towards our Arbor Day celebration, and trying to kind of overcome some of the challenges that school levy failing and the lack of transportation have posed. But I think we're getting there. We're coming up with some very reasonable solutions. We've got a very good committee that works very hard, so it'll be interesting.
Well, all right, thank you. Thank you, Chris. Okay. Pretty much takes care of all of the agenda items except for item number 11. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Second.
Motion has been seconded. All in favor of adjourning the meeting? Aye. Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.